My own father stood in front of a room full of powerful people, looked straight at me, and said I should have died at birth. In that single moment, the man who gave me his name erased my existence. The room fell silent, not out of shock but agreement. That night, I didn't just lose my family. I lost my inheritance, my future, my place in the world. I walked out with nothing but shame burning in my chest and a question that wouldn't leave me. Why? But what no one in that room knew, not even my father, was that a single sealed envelope already existed. One letter capable of turning humiliation into absolute power. Stay with me till the end. And if you believe real justice still exists, subscribe and press the bell icon so you never miss stories like this. From the outside, our family looked untouchable. My father didn't just own companies, he owned influence. Politicians answered his calls. Judges attended his dinners. Our last name opened doors most people never even saw. We lived in a mansion filled with art, silence, and rules. Every hallway whispered legacy. Every dinner table conversation revolved around power, expansion, and the future of the empire. That future had a face. My brother's. He was the golden son, groomed, praised, paraded in public. From a young age, he sat beside my father in board meetings, learning how to command rooms twice his size. When he spoke, my father smiled. When he failed, excuses were made. And then there was me. I was never introduced as an heir, only as my daughter. A label, not a role. At events, I stood 3 steps behind, forgotten in photographs, ignored in conversations. When guests asked about my interests, my father would wave his hand dismissively, as if I were an inconvenience that talked too much. At home, the neglect was quieter and crueler. My mother noticed everything, yet said nothing. She moved through the house like a shadow, afraid that speaking up might make things worse. Her silence hurt almost as much as my father's words. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me from across the room, eyes full of apology she never voiced. Birthdays passed with expensive gifts and zero affection. Achievements were met with silence. Failures were magnified, dissected, and used as proof that I didn't belong. I learned early how to make myself small, how to disappear in plain sight. But the question that haunted me wasn't why he favored my brother. It was darker than that. Why did my father look at me with resentment? Not disappointment, not indifference, hatred, as if my very existence was a mistake he had been forced to live with, a secret he never wanted the world to see. And the more I tried to earn his approval, the clearer it became. I wasn't just unwanted. I was never meant to be there at all. The retirement gala was meant to be a celebration. Crystal chandeliers burned overhead like frozen fire. A string orchestra filled the air with elegance that felt rehearsed, artificial, like everything else in that room. The most powerful people in the city were there. CEOs, senators, judges, old friends who had grown rich alongside my father. They raised glasses to his legacy, his sacrifice, his empire. I stood near the back, wearing a dress chosen for me, not by me. My name was on the guest list, but my presence felt ceremonial, like furniture that happened to breathe. My father took the stage to thunderous applause. He smiled. The crowd leaned in. "This company," he began, voice steady and commanding, "has been my life's work." A screen behind him lit up with images, factories, skyscrapers, magazine covers. The empire displayed like evidence. "My son," he continued, motioning for my brother to stand, "has proven himself worthy of carrying this legacy forward." Applause exploded. Louder. Longer. My brother bowed slightly, soaking it in. He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "Effective immediately," my father said, "all controlling interests, assets, and authority will be transferred to him." Cheers. Standing ovation. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not surprise, but confirmation. I had known this day would come. I just hadn't known how brutal it would be. The applause began to die down. My father raised one finger. And as for my daughter, the room quieted. Heads turned. Eyes found me. For a moment, just one foolish, fragile moment, I wondered if this was it. If he might finally say something kind, something public, something that acknowledged I existed. He looked directly at me, not with hesitation, with precision. She will receive nothing. The silence was instant. Heavy. You were a mistake, he added, his voice echoing through the room. A complication I should have corrected at birth. Gasps rippled, then something worse. Laughter, soft at first, uncomfortable chuckles, then louder, bolder, permission granted by the most powerful man in the room. Someone clinked a glass. Someone else whispered, savage. My brother laughed openly, not nervously, not accidentally. He leaned toward the microphone my father had left behind and said, guess the inheritance gene skipped her. More laughter. My vision blurred, but my ears stayed sharp. I heard every sound, the scrape of chairs, the rustle of expensive fabric, the judgment in their silence, the way no one spoke up. Not one. I searched the crowd for my mother. She sat frozen, hands folded in her lap, eyes shining with tears she refused to let fall. She didn't stand. She didn't speak. She didn't save me. My legs felt numb as I rose from my seat. The sound of my chair moving was unbearably loud, a small, human noise in a room that had just declared me worthless. Every step toward the exit felt like walking through fire. People watched, some with pity, most with curiosity, a few with satisfaction, like they'd just witnessed entertainment they hadn't paid for. At the door, I paused. I don't know why. Maybe part of me hoped my father would stop me. Call my name. Say it was a joke. Say anything. He didn't. He was already shaking hands, accepting congratulations, smiling for cameras. So I walked out. The cool night air hit my face like punishment. I made it to the valet before my knees gave out. I sat on the curb in a dress worth more than my entire future and finally broke. I wasn't crying because I'd lost money. I was crying because in one public sentence, my father had erased my humanity. I had been judged, condemned, disowned, not privately, but as a spectacle, a verdict delivered before the jury of the elite. And as the doors behind me closed, sealing in their laughter and applause, one truth became painfully clear. They believed this was the end of my story. They were wrong, because while I walked away with nothing, there was something none of them knew, something waiting, a sealed envelope, a truth my father had buried, and a reckoning that would make this night look merciful in comparison. I was halfway down the marble steps when a hand caught my wrist. Not rough, not desperate, careful. I turned, startled, and saw my uncle standing there, my father's younger brother, the only man in that family who had ever looked at me like a human being. He didn't say my name. He didn't ask if I was okay. His eyes flicked toward the glass doors behind us, making sure no one was watching. Then he pressed something into my palm, a thick, cream-colored envelope. Sealed. No matter what happens next, he said quietly, do not leave this building without opening that. I looked down at it, confused. What is this? He swallowed. For the first time, I saw fear in him. It's the truth, he said, and it's been waiting for you longer than you know. Before I could ask anything else, the door swung open behind us. Laughter spilled out again. Music. Applause. My uncle stepped back, instantly becoming just another guest. I stood there frozen, the envelope burning against my skin. I could have left. That was the sensible thing to do. Walk away. Go home. Crawl into bed and let this night scar me quietly, privately, the way wounds like this usually do. My hand tightened around the envelope. Something stopped me. Maybe it was the way my father's voice still echoed in my head. You were a mistake. You should have died at birth. Or maybe it was exhaustion. The kind that comes when you realize you've spent your whole life shrinking, apologizing, hoping to earn love from people who benefit from your silence. I turned around and walked back in. The music faltered when people noticed me returning. Conversation slowed, then stopped. Heads turned. Whispers spread like static. My father noticed last. He was mid-laugh with a senator when his smile stiffened. My brother saw me and grinned, nudging someone beside him. She forgot something, he said loudly. Dignity, maybe? More laughter. I walked toward the stage, slow, steady, every step deliberate. The envelope felt heavier now, like it carried not paper, but gravity. What is this? My father asked sharply, his voice cutting through the room. I stopped a few feet away from him. I was just leaving, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. But then I was given this. I raised the envelope. The room leaned in. My father's eyes narrowed. If you're looking for money, he said coldly, you've already been told. This isn't about money, I replied. That earned a few scoffs. My brother laughed openly. Oh, please. What is it then? A sympathy letter? A DNA test from a cereal box. The elites chuckled, relaxed again. Confident. Entertained. My father crossed his arms. You've embarrassed yourself enough tonight, he said. Don't make it worse. I looked at him, really looked. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. This envelope, I said, was written before tonight. Before your speech. Before you disowned me in front of everyone. A flicker of something passed over his face. Just for a second. What's inside? Someone asked from the crowd. My uncle had moved closer now, standing off to the side. Our eyes met. He nodded. My hands trembled as I held the envelope up higher. I haven't opened it yet, I said. I was told to do it here, in front of witnesses. The word witnesses landed like a challenge. My father's jaw tightened. This is absurd, he snapped. Sit down. I didn't. Instead, I broke the seal. The sound was small, a quiet tear of paper, but in that silent room, it felt thunderous. I pulled out a folded document. Then another. My breath caught. At the top of the first page was a date. 27 years ago, the year I was born. My heart began to pound so loudly I was sure others could hear it. I scanned the page, signatures, letterhead, legal language. And then I saw the names. My father's, my mother's, and a third, a doctor. The room felt suddenly too small. What does it say? My brother called out mockingly. Go on, read it. My eyes moved to the next document. A handwritten letter. The ink had faded slightly, but the words were clear. To my daughter, it began. My breath hitched. The handwriting wasn't my father's. It was my mother's. My hand shook as I read. If you're reading this, it means the truth could no longer stay buried. I am so sorry for the silence. I thought protecting you meant hiding this, but all it did was hurt you. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My father stepped forward. That's enough, he said, his voice low. Dangerous. Give me that. I didn't move. I kept reading. You were never a mistake. You were never unwanted. You were never meant to be erased. My vision blurred with tears, but I forced myself to continue. The letter explained everything. Why my father hated me. Why my mother stayed silent. Why my existence had always felt like an offense. And as the truth unfolded line by line, I realized something terrifying and powerful. This envelope didn't just explain my past. It dismantled my father's entire narrative. The room buzzed now. Whispers turned frantic. What is she reading? Look at his face. My brother's smile faltered. My father's hands were clenched into fists. I lowered the letter and looked up. For years, I said, my voice shaking but strong, I believed there was something wrong with me. I held up the documents. But according to this, the truth is something very different. The room held its breath. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one on trial. My father was. And the verdict, whatever it was about to be delivered. The room had changed. Not in sound, it was still silent, but in weight. Like the air itself had thickened, pressing down on every person who had laughed just minutes ago. I turned the page. There was another letter inside the envelope, folded carefully, the paper older, heavier with time. At the top, written in firm, deliberate handwriting were the words. To my granddaughter. My breath caught. This one wasn't from my mother. It was from my grandfather. The man whose name built the empire they all worshipped. The man whose portrait hung in every boardroom like a saint watching over sinners. The man my father always claimed to honor. I began to read. If this letter has reached you, then I am gone, and my greatest regret has already come true. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. My father shifted, just slightly, but I saw it. I built this empire with my own hands, the letter continued. But power reveals character, and your father showed me his. My heart pounded. The letter described things no one ever spoke about. The early years of the company, the risky deals, the debts hidden behind polished success. It named names, dates, places, Then came the sentence that shattered everything. Your father did not earn this empire. He inherited it through deception. A sharp inhale echoed from somewhere in the crowd. My father stepped forward. This is a lie, he snapped. Old ramblings from a bitter man. Be quiet, someone whispered. Not me, one of his own board members. I kept reading. The letter explained how my grandfather had discovered my father was siphoning company funds years before I was born, funneling money into secret accounts, forging approvals, manipulating numbers to inflate his own control. I confronted him, my grandfather wrote, and he begged. He promised to change, for the sake of the family. My hands trembled as I turned the page. But then you were born. The room froze. Your existence exposed a truth he could not bury. My chest tightened. The letter revealed it all. The reason my father despised me so deeply. I wasn't just a child. I was evidence. Evidence that during the time my father claimed to be on international expansion trips, he had been involved in an affair with a woman tied directly to one of the shell companies draining the empire. That woman was my mother. The relationship threatened to expose everything. Your birth created records he couldn't erase, my grandfather wrote. Medical files, timelines, witnesses. My father's face had gone pale. This wasn't humiliation anymore. This was panic. My grandfather had forced my father into an agreement. One meant to protect the empire and, secretly me, you were to be acknowledged privately, the letter said. Protected financially, and when the time was right, restored publicly. Gasps spread across the room. I pulled out the final documents. Legal documents. Not copies. Originals. Trust agreements. Asset freezes. Contingency clauses. All bearing my grandfather's signature. And my name. A collective realization rippled through the elites like electricity. This wasn't a story. This was law. I looked up. My father's confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and animal. Fear. Those documents are obsolete, he said quickly, too quickly. They were never enacted. That's incorrect, a voice said. An older man stepped forward, the family lawyer. He looked at my father with something close to pity. The clauses activate upon public disinheritance, he said, which you just executed on record. The room erupted, not in noise but movement. Phones came out. Whispers turned urgent. What does that mean? Someone asked. It means, the lawyer continued, that control of the majority trust immediately transfers to her. All eyes snapped to me. My brother laughed, sharp, desperate. That's insane. She doesn't even work here. I met his gaze. Neither did you, I said quietly. You were handed everything. His face twisted. This is a setup. My uncle stepped forward now. No, he said firmly. This is a reckoning. My father lunged toward me. Give me those papers. Security moved before he could reach me. The irony was almost poetic. The same men who had enforced his power now blocked him. You planned this, my brother shouted at me. I shook my head. No, you planned to erase me. This was just the truth catching up. The room had gone deathly still. People weren't laughing anymore. They were calculating. Because power had shifted, not slowly, not quietly, but instantly, irrevocably. The empire they thought they understood had cracks running through its foundation, and I was standing at the center of it. The family lawyer cleared his throat. There's more, he said. He gestured to the documents in my hand. Your grandfather also placed an ethics clause on succession. My father stiffened. If evidence of fraud, coercion, or abuse of authority surfaced, the lawyer continued, the acting head would be removed pending investigation. A pause, which this letter constitutes. My father's voice dropped to a whisper. You wouldn't dare. The lawyer met his eyes. We already have. My brother's bravado collapsed. Dad, he said, suddenly unsure. For the first time, my father didn't answer him. The crowd stood frozen, witnesses to a collapse decades in the making. I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not triumph, not revenge, validation. Every ignored birthday, every public dismissal, every moment I believed I was unworthy. None of it was because I was broken. It was because I was dangerous to a lie. I folded the letters carefully. Then I spoke, not loudly, not angrily, but clearly. You told me I should have died at birth, I said. But if I hadn't lived, none of this would be known. I looked around the room. This empire was built on secrets, I continued. And tonight they end. No one clapped. No one laughed. They just watched. Because justice wasn't loud. It was inevitable, and it had finally arrived. By morning, the world had shifted. Not slowly, not quietly, but with the force of a storm finally unleashed. The legal documents were clear. The trust, the empire, the assets, everything my father had tried to deny me, had been officially transferred into my name. The weight of power, once used against me, now rested squarely in my hands. The room, which had laughed at my humiliation just hours before, was silent as the news spread. My father, once untouchable, was exposed for the deceit, greed, and cruelty he had built his life upon. The golden son, my brother, had no footing, no legitimacy, no authority, no defense. Disgraced, he slunk into the shadows, realizing for the first time that birthright alone could not shield him from truth. And yet, I felt no hunger for revenge. I could have humiliated them in return. I could have wielded their secrets like weapons, flaunted the power I now held. But for the first time, I understood that the real strength was in calm, in measured grace. Power was not just about what you could take. It was about what you refused to do. I walked through the company halls the next day, greeted by employees who had long doubted whether anyone in my family cared for them, or even knew they existed. Their respect was different from the fear my father inspired. It was quiet, genuine. I signed the papers to stabilize the empire, ensured transparency in leadership, and implemented measures my grandfather had long hoped for. Ethics, accountability, fairness. Every decision reminded me that my worth was not dependent on my father's approval, nor my brother's envy. I thought of the birthdays I had spent alone, the dinners ignored, the words unspoken. And in the stillness of my new authority, I made a choice to break the cycle. Generational trauma would not continue under my watch. I would lead with integrity, compassion, and justice, the very things that had been denied to me, now guiding every step forward. When my father tried to speak to me privately, I listened, but I did not need his validation. When my brother sought reconciliation, I offered guidance, not indulgence. I was no longer a child trying to belong. I was a leader tempered by pain, strengthened by truth. And in that moment, I realized the final lesson of my journey. Worth is not measured by approval or inheritance. It is measured by the courage to stand when the world has tried to erase you, and the grace to rise above cruelty. For the first time in my life, I felt unshakable. The empire was mine, not because my father gave it, but because truth finally had taken its throne. And I had claimed it, whole, unbroken, and finally free. For years, I believed the loudest voice in my life defined my worth. The man who gave me life told me I was a mistake. The world laughed at me when I had nothing. And for a long time, I believed them. But the truth has a power all its own. No one who benefits from your silence gets to decide your value. No one who thrives on your fear can claim your life. I didn't win because I was louder. I didn't win because I plotted revenge. I won because the truth finally had space to speak. Because one letter, one voice, one undeniable fact reminded me who I truly was and who I had always been. The empire, the legacy, the wealth, they were never the real victory. The real victory was rising above cruelty, choosing integrity over vindication, breaking the chains of generational pain. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you that worth isn't granted, it's claimed, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach people who need them most, people who need to believe that truth, justice, and courage still matter.